What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. And it's time for another 1/18 scale review again. And this time we're going to take a look at a recent Maisto release because, honestly, I think they delivered some real quality with this one. So the car that we're going to be reviewing today is the 8th and current gen Porsche 911 known as the 992. And it was initially launched in 2018 as a Carrera, but this GT3 didn't hit the market until 2021. I managed to get this from Modellissimo for $29.95 back in early November, which was too good to pass up, considering these usually sell for 40, 45, and in some places even 50 euros. But funny thing is, just a couple days after I had placed the order, on the 11th of November, the price dropped further to 24 euros for just that day. That's like almost Costco wholesale price, but without requiring an annual membership card to be able to shop there. Now here's what I don't get. Maisto also sells the 992 in yellow, black, blue, and red. But unlike this orange, none of them have the bonnet striping saying Porsche, which was actually the reason why I decided to get the orange one. However, there's a couple more differences than just the striping. The blue version and red version have body-colored roofs, while both the orange and yellow versions have black roofs. And then there are two rarer versions, one in black and the other also in red, but both of which do have this hood striping and also have it continue over the body-colored roof to match up with the striping in the center of the rear wing, as well as having a black trim start from behind the front fender, envelop the GT3 branding that you see at the bottom left of the door, and go all the way to the edge of the door. I think those two are the exclusive versions since they come with the non-transparent box. But then, so does the blue version, which adds to the confusion. Especially since none of them seem to have any extra interior details like older exclusive editions released by Maisto used to have, like the 458 Speciale or Centenario. And to add even more to the confusion, some of them are sold without raised side windows, while the packaging of my orange 992 was definitely the standard Maisto box, with the see-through plastic and not an exclusive edition. I think the ones without windows are meant for the US market, where wholesale clubs like Costco's and Sam's sell them for $18. So taking a look at the front of the 1/18 scale Porsche 911 992, you can see that the front looks pretty nice with this black striping that I mentioned earlier. And The paint quality is also fantastic. There is almost no orange peel, and it's very fine and nice. Now, regarding the headlights, Porsche calls these matrix LEDs the X-Sight. And I'm not a huge fan of these modern LED headlights because I found the older Porsche 911 headlights to be prettier because they were actual bulbs with like chrome surround and everything. But at least Maisto did a good job on them in the sense that there are no headlight pegs and you can see them. And then here in the middle we have the Porsche logo, of course, at the very bottom of the Porsche script. And flanking it are two brake cooling vents, I guess, because the engine is at the rear. And we have plastic inserts with a textured grille pattern inside them. And underneath we have an EU license plate, German of course, S for Stuttgart, GT3 and with the emblem of the state as well. Now underneath we have another air intake for the brake cooling, or maybe for the downforce. And to either side we then also have two indicators. And now let's get the front trunk open. The front trunk opens about this far up, which is pretty good. And you can see that Maisto has actually put some extra detail here than what they normally do, because we can see that the two air vents here are the continuation of the air vents that I showed you earlier, and the trunk space itself also has like a little bit of extra detail. It's got like that rubber lip, I guess, and on the top left and top right corner we have those little plates, and the underside of the trunk lid is also detailed. Now let's see what we can fit inside the trunk. I guess there's just enough space for one small piece of luggage and perhaps an umbrella. So yeah. And here's a look at the side of the 1/18 scale Porsche 911 992 GT3. And you can see that the black wheels really match and contrast with the orange quite well, I'd say. Just like the black side of the rear wing. Now, as I mentioned, the GT3 branding is at the bottom left of the door, and above it we have a two-tone mirror sculpt as well. And regarding the mirror quality, let's see if the stickers Maisto used for the reflectors are actually of any like proper reflecting quality. And yeah, they actually do make my door opening tool reflect the way it's supposed to look like, so that's good. And regarding the wheels, the real car has got 20-inch wheels at the front and 21-inch wheels at the rear, and Maisto actually replicated this difference. Now if we take a closer look at the wheels, you can see that Maisto did put a lot of detail into getting these rims right, because they are thin and nicely shaped, and then we also have this tire inflating nozzle there. We get brake discs and brake calipers with Porsche branding, and they're yellow, and of course at the front it also says GT3. And to the top left we have the indicator. And as Porsches get more modern, they become increasingly well pronounced when it comes to the rear haunches, as these get wider and wider. And I think Maisto has done a great job in just getting all of those proportions to look just right. Now, aside from the branding on the door, the next easiest way you can tell this is a GT3 is by the massive fixed wing. And you can see how underneath the wing, the stock 992 has a rear lip spoiler, and above that spoiler and underneath the rear wing, we have 4.0 written, to remind us what the displacement of the 992 GT3's engine is. The rear deck lid also has some details molded here. So yeah, very nice setup. Now, this being a Maisto, it has full suspension, both front and rear. And taking a look at the back of the 1/18 scale Porsche 911 992 GT3 by Maisto, you can see that the back also has a lot of details, although I'm not a big fan of the new type of taillights, As you can see, they're just like one big light bar, and then we have like two smaller sort of chiseled corners that they call lights now. At least Maisto replicated it just like on the real thing. We've got GT3 written in the middle, and underneath we have a sticker for the rear license plate as well. And to the right of it we have like another tow hook that's modeled on the car body. Now, regarding the rear exhaust, I actually took the time to paint this myself in silver because I was kind of unhappy with the fact that it was just black plastic, just like the rear diffuser. So now I think it sticks out a little more and looks better in my opinion. These rear corner lights are there, but unfortunately they are just painted on. So aside from the full-length light bar, which seems to be a separate plastic piece, directly underneath it you have Porsche written in 3D lettering, which Maisto also managed to replicate, although it is quite hard to read. And above the light bar and below the rear lip spoiler is a small grille to help with the engine cooling. So yes, I am disappointed in the fact that you can't open the rear trunk. Maisto probably sealed it to cut costs, and perhaps also because this being a modern Porsche, you actually can't access the rear engine the way you could in older models, like the 997. I mean, this is basically what it looks like to the consumer. Just two radiator fans, a windshield washer fluid cap, and another for the oil, because the gas cap is at the front right. And that's it. You'd have to take it to a shop to be able to open the panel and see more of the engine, which would be a 4-liter naturally aspirated flat 6 producing 503 horsepower. It has a top speed of 320 kph and accelerates from 0 to 100 kph in 3 seconds, which makes it faster than the Porsche Carrera GT from 2005. And now let's check out the interior. Maisto for some reason didn't include a sticker for the sill plate, but it is slightly raised, so I decided to paint it in silver myself, and although it doesn't look perfect up close, it works from a distance. Now the interior is in an all black, so I will have to use the flash later to show you the dashboard details, but for now let's focus on the transmission and the console around it. Since this is a GT3, it has a 6-speed manual transmission, while the GTS has the 7-speed manual. However, the 992 GT3 also came with a 7-speed PDK transmission, and now I'm unsure which one Maisto has modeled here. So under the flash you can see we have an LCD display in the center. It's even got a sticker with a car on it, and Maisto has also labeled the buttons underneath it, where you can also see 2 aircon vents. What I also like is the silver trim running across the middle of the dashboard. Now unfortunately, the dashboard clock doesn't have a dial, which is something I'm okay with on the 124 scale version, but would have preferred to see a small sticker here on the 118. However, it is flanked by 2 vents, just like on the real 992. Do you see that little seam there? That actually marks the area for the dashboard, which can extend outward as a cup holder for the passenger. And now trying to focus on the back of the seats, you can see Maisto gave them a carbon fiber texture. The GT3 comes with bucket seats, and the seat backs have a different texture than the side bolstering. And these parts here should be made out of carbon fiber, but Maisto forgot to. But it does say GT3 in color-matching orange lettering on the headrests. This car even has a roll cage, which is optional on the real GT3, but I'm glad Maisto included it, although it is painted black and therefore hard to see. So under the flash, you can see that we have a new type of steering wheel, which Maisto has tried to model after the one on the real car. For instance, with the labeled buttons on either side, and then on the bottom right, that little button there is the dial where you can select your drive mode. We've got the Porsche typical 5-gauge instrument panel as a single sticker behind the steering wheel, And the floor pedals are kind of weird in that the gas and the brake pedals are huge and the clutch in the center is rather small, but it does look like that on the real car as well, although the clutch pedal is a tiny bit bigger. Another thing worth mentioning is that Maisto has replicated the look of the door handle that extends into a chrome cheat line on the door card. The model has working front steering, and the steering wheel corresponds to it. And even though this is a Maisto, the front wheels stay turned instead of going back to the normal position, allowing for posing. Taking a look at the bottom of the car, you can see that we have Porsche 911 GT3 written here, scale 118, Maisto made in China, and it's pretty flat, the exception of these rear diffusers here, which are done quite nicely, I'd say. So yeah. So what is my conclusion about this model? I actually think that in terms of exterior looks, the casting quality is superb. This really does not look like a Maisto. If you said this is a Norev, people would believe it. The lack of a thick paint coat, the raised windows, the tight shut lines, and even when it comes to the interior, the dashboard not having that coarse plastic texture you'd usually find in Maistos, all of it really prove that Maisto have outdone themselves with this model. Especially when you compare it with some of their even more recent releases, like the Lamborghini Revuelto, which, while being a much fancier car, is back to the typical Maisto quality. Has thicker paint, visible panel gaps, and so on. So it's really bizarre to see how there's like two different casting qualities in models released by the same company, pretty much in the same year. It's almost like they made them in two different factories. Now this also carried over to their 124 992, by the way, which they, as in the Cheong group, sell under the Bburago brand. You can see here how, with the exception of the missing windows and perhaps windshield wipers that are molded into the windshield, how everything else is just as good looking as on the 118. Just small details like unpainted brake calipers and the missing striping are what makes it have less detail. Amazing stuff, really. And gives Welly a run for its money. Anyhow, I hope you guys liked my review of Maisto's 118 Porsche 911 992. I have reviewed other Porsche 911s you can find right here. Worth checking out their quirks compared to this one's. So I'll see you over there. Take care. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.